Welcome back to Stay Tuned. I'm Tony Angelo. Today we're going to dig back into our forgotten big deal project. This is my Aston Martin V12 powered Fox body Mustang. And we're going to dig right in and take the next steps to get this thing fired up and rocking. Let's go. All right, so long story made short, my buddy Mike Knapp said I have a 2005 Aston Martin V12 hanging around from a DB7 or so. It was his dad's. It was doing nothing. Did I want it? I said, absolutely. He handed it over to me, and the rest, we just started jamming it into the car that felt the most right. Back in the day, Aston was owned by Ford. We said, let's get a little Ford, something that can handle good, and build our own version of like a grand touring American car with this 48 valve, 5.9 liter V12 motor that we happen to get our hands on. We have been waiting to get back on this project for a minute, and we've heard a billion comments from you guys. What's up with the Aston Martin powered Mustang? What's up with the V12 Fox body? What's going on? I'm super psyched that you guys are stoked about this thing as I am. This has taken us quite a bit of time to get back on it because turns out there are just not a ton of parts for a 20-year-old V12 that was made in a shed in Britain. But we're gonna fix that, we're after it, we're gonna get this thing ready to rock. Let's call it 8 months ago. We got this motor fitted in. One of the key pieces was that QuickTime makes a bell housing from the Aston Martin V12 to a T56. So I got a T56 from American Powertrain, got that QuickTime bell housing, bolted it all together, and dropped this sucker in. And we spent a week making V12 headers because it's quite a tough fit in this little chassis. We got all the parts from Stainless Headers Manufacturing. We spent forever and a day welding them all together. They're ready to rock, and the project's honestly kind of been sitting since then, as far as you guys know. But behind the scenes, we've been jamming. One thing we did just to make everything sit right, we installed our QA1 front suspension on this puppy. So we have a QA1 tubular front crossmember in there. It allows you to make whatever mounts you want and bolt in that little plate. We've got QA1 front struts on here now with their lower arm. The idea is to have this as a good handling, you know, like I said, sort of grand touring car, an Aston Martin, but I can't afford one, so let's build one anyway. So we picked the Fox body chassis. You can make these things really handle. There's a million options for the rear suspension. You can put a Cobra IRS in there. You can run with the trailing arm set up the 4-link. You can put a torque arm in it. There's all sorts of things you can do to make them really drive well. And the front is McPherson strut, and that's a pretty good setup to begin with. Good feel, compact, lightweight. They work well. So we've got the QA1 strut front end on there now. And the issue is this. You cannot run a off-the-shelf Aston Martin clutch. I believe these came with two different kind of versions of the T56. One was a transaxle, one was more of a regular T56, but the clutch does not work with a sort of brand new Magnum style unit. So we had to reach out to some different manufacturers. Center Force got on board with the project and we super appreciate them, but they said, listen, we don't know these motors. V12s are weird, you know, there's some Duratec parts in there, but it's not really the whole thing, and it's sort of their own design. We need you to jump in and take some measurements of this thing, and that's what we're gonna do. We just got the transmission out, so you cannot use a regular factory clutch from the Aston Martin, but we need to get a starter ring, and nobody had one. So we ended up ordering a flex plate from Britain online and getting that sent over. That took forever. There was no starter with this thing, so we wound up ordering a stock starter, again, online from the UK, sent that over. That all got sent over to Center Force. They're working with that, and we have to do a little bit of measuring now, just so they know exactly where everything sits in the bell housing. They can figure out how big of a clutch I believe that they can make, what kind of clearance they have. All right, so we got our bell housing measurements all dialed up, filled out on the Center Force form, and sent over to them. It's a whole new day. You can see I'm wearing some different clothes. We're about to jump into figuring out how this wiring harness is all gonna lay out. But before that, I have to address something really quickly. In the last video where we talked about all the different project cars, having too many, what's gonna stay, what's gonna go, a ton of people saw what they thought was an American flag draped over this 6.4 Hemi and got, you know, upset, understandably, and that's totally reasonable. I just wanna let you guys know, that's not me, it's not my motor, I don't really know where that thing came from. It's a beach towel, and still not a great, I'm actually like a real stickler for the flag code. I don't buy flags that have people's faces on them or crazy colors or crazy words. So to totally respect it, I will probably dispose of it properly. We've got a trash bag on there now, but I didn't think that was cool, and my apologies for everyone that thought we were just taking the proper flag and just hanging it over a gross hold motor. Sweet. All right, so now we're gonna set up Laying out our wiring harness for this engine, obviously we're not using any of the factory Aston Martin wiring at all. We have the V12 motor in here. It has a bunch of their sensors on there, but we're going to power this thing and control this thing with an ECU Masters computer. We're going to run the EMU Pro 16. It is a super powerful computer. It can do 2 drive-by-wire throttle bodies, which is something we want to do, which almost nothing can handle. Up to 4 oxygen sensors, up to 12 cylinders sequentially. It has like 46 outputs and 46 inputs and 30 outputs. It is a very powerful piece of kit, and we're super stoked to be rocking with that stuff. And we kind of came to connecting with them through the guys from Hang Tight. They were like, hey, these guys make a killer product, and we can actually help you get it up and rocking. The Hang Tight guys did the electric power steering setup on the 911. Look at that. We're in business now. Well, we got a race car here, which is a super killer, well thought out, really sort of simplified, nice kit with that adjustable power steering. So they're also wiring gurus. They're going to make this harness for us. Which we love, because I've made some harnesses back in the day. It takes forever. It's very tedious, and if it's the kind of thing you do day in and day out, you're much better at. And I used to do them for rotaries. They have more or less 4 wires. Injectors and 4 spark plugs. It's a little bit different. This 12 on 12 situation is insane. So they gave us some basic information, and more or less, we know where the different sensors are. We think most of them. And it's just about using some string and some labels and some tape and laying it all out in space. That's correct, Barb? Did they give us any pointers?
Do it nicely.
So, this motor made, I want to say 425 from Aston Martin. I would think with the headers, freer flowing intake, more aggressive control of the timing and fuel. Maybe looking at 450 here, with a super gnarly Banshee sound. So I'm very excited about this. This has been a long time coming. But this, believe it or not, when you're doing something exactly like this, the next step is going to be go down to the hardware
climber's
store,
rope,
go get yourself some climber's rope and get this figured out. So that's what we're going to do. Lots of tape, a couple of pencils, and we're going to get rocking. So obviously we've got to lay out where the injectors are. I went out, another thing we had to get on British eBay.
Oh yeah.
Where are those puppies? I got this, these are fuel rails with all 12 injectors. These are from a later V12 Aston, but they work just fine. I had to get them on eBay from
the motherland.
Yeah, from Britain. And you can see how tight these all fit in there. But basically, I think this is it. If you get it just right, they kind of snuggle in next to each other. This motor is physically huge. I feel like I'm working on a 12 valve over here. All right, that's it. So it sits in like that. And where do you want to start? I guess this central rail, right?
I think this might be one of those eeny, meeny, miny, mo situations.
Yeah, I mean, I figure this is going to be like the main branch of the wiring is going to live down this center tunnel. Are there any pickups? Looks like we've got some kind of crank sync on both sides of the front cover here. Right? Mm-hmm. So engines need, the inputs are like, what's the throttle pedal doing? Where is the engine? That's like, how fast is it spinning? Where is it in its cycle? All that stuff comes from all the different inputs. How is it running? That's an input like the oxygen. It reads all that and it tells it how much fuel and when to fire the ignition system and where you are in the stroke and in the cycle. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is there are 2 crank sensors on the front cover. We will dig in there and start labeling that stuff out. And there's also 2 coolant sensors on the top here. That'll be the very front of the harness. We're just gonna lay it out. I think we cut it, kind of manage the exact routing where it's gonna be, cut them to length, tape it all up, and then mark them all, label them as best we can.
Leave some extra length like up there, and then we can cut them all short there, kind of deal. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's gonna be one central branch with a bunch of stuff taped to it, correct, or no?
No, he wants every wire. Every wire's got to be separate. He's got to he's got to use the wires to measure the length.
Well, you just use the whole. Okay, that's fine. Way down here. a crank pickup. There's one on both sides of the motor. Okay, there may be 2 wheels on that thing. 2 tone rings, as they called them. But we're gonna have, our big concern is that the belt sits right against the motor. So we're gonna have to get to that connector from basically the back of it.
Backside, yeah.
All right, we're talking about doing a sub harness for the injectors and the coils. If you ever want to change what kind of coil you're running or what kind of injector you're running, you just have to make a sub harness instead of digging into the whole main harness. So that's the plan. This motor has 2 crank sensors right on the very front of this front cover, very close to where some kind of belt is going to live. So we're trying to figure out the best way to get to those things. I think we can come around and under that one. Or we could sneak it down in here somewhere. If that's the case, let's take these intake manifolds off and get into this thing, no?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, first thing we're going to do is pull the intake manifolds off.
Okay.
All right, we're going to pull the intake off. Buckle up. So I'm gonna pull one of these. Are they just stuck in there?
These?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cover holds it down.
That's what I thought, but oh, there it goes.
That is some science right there.
Yeah, this is just a twisted pair of wires zip tied. Oh, this was you know what this is? This is a timing loop. So whoever owned this thing probably had these looped together, stuck. They cut the corner of that off, and they would put an inductive pickup there and be able to check the timing.
That makes sense. That's smart.
Yeah.
Right.
This is number 1. It makes sense, but I don't think we should need it anymore. But that is, I think that's the same truck coil that's on a mod motor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you see the forward connection right there? All right, I'm gonna look this number up.
Okay.
7J2541. Comes back as a ignition coil for a Briggs & Stratton motor. I don't really know why.
That makes
I'm
about
kidding.
as
I'm
much
kidding.
sense.
That's what it came back as. I don't think that's true. We'll find it. 7J. Oh, there's a bigger number on top. I got it. Sweet. So, looking at it, 2003 Ford Mustang coils. People hem and haw about this motor, and they're like, it's just a couple of Ford Duratec V6s put together, and it's got a bunch of Ford parts on it. Guess what? Great. That's awesome, because most V12 parts are going to be super expensive from 25 years ago in Europe, but these are not. This is just Ford stuff that we can buy locally and afford. These are $40 a piece.
I can tell you the small fortune that I spent on a 25-year-old flex plate and starter that we don't even know if it works.
Yeah.
This starter right here, this is an Aston Martin part. See, they got the double A's though? That's Ford stuff.
Okay.
Aston Martin part. This starter, I think, was almost $300.
Ugh, yeah. Bummer.
At least.
But your plan is to just snatch up this
I'm gonna do all this, and
Yeah.
then I'll take a million pictures of it and send it to him. That way he can see like, oh, blue tape mark here.
Yeah,
I think that'll be helpful.
I love it.
Good. I'm glad.
Whatever keeps us from having to build an engine harness, I'm into it.
Yeah. Thanks, boys. Sensors right here.
Yeah.
So bring it along the bottom here. I was gonna bring it along the backside at first, except the header primary is literally right there.
Yeah, let's not melt
So
anything.
let's not do that. We also have to bring an offshoot for the starter, or for the alternator.
Yep.
All right, so let me trim this.
You should put one in for the AC too, man.
Yeah. I think
Why not?
Yep. You know, when this becomes your daily.
We'll see. Hopefully we got the same thing under here, I would assume. So our goal with the next episode of this thing is to get it fired up.
Yep.
The next time we dig into this puppy, that's the goal. Get it fired up, and that'll be a lot of work. We'll have to figure out the fuel system. We'll have to get some kind of throttle bodies on here. get the computer in, find some kind of bass tune, figure out all of the setup for the ignition, when this thing fires, what the firing order is, what degree the crank swings are, all that stuff.
So Tyson, the guy who's making the harness,
Yeah.
in Hang Tight, he's gonna give us a bass tune. He said he can get this car when they come. So they're coming out here to make some like final terminated connections, and
Okay.
he's gonna write a bass tune and get it fired and running. And he's like, we could drive it down the block.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm like,
That sounds good.
yeah,
It's kind of Tyson I want to hear from.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about that time I had to stay up till 2 a.m. to watch a couple of grown men have a pillow fight last week.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Come on. Good thing
Yeah.
it was free.
Woo! I fell asleep.
Yeah, that's the appropriate response.
I don't see knock sensors.
We'll have to
anywhere on
there are no knock sensors anywhere in this thing, as far as I can
Well,
tell.
the early one, or the later ones, it's right here. I found a diagram yesterday.
Okay. So a knock sensor is a little microphone that listens for, pings and knocks and says, oh, you have too much ignition timing or the fuel's gone bad, and we'll pull just to sort of safeguard the engine. We're gonna try to run it. Knock sensors on the ECU Masters setup, but doesn't seem to make any provisions for them on this block, but that's okay because I think there's sort of 2 spots to put your engine mounts, and if those are the correct size, we can just run it right there. But you want to put a knock sensor directly into the engine case, not on any cover, not on the heads, none of that stuff, just right into the block. All right, this looks the same under here. These are cam pickups in the back too?
Yeah. So this is gonna have to, yeah.
So 2 cam pickups, 2 crank pickups. Okay.
Cam and crank should be part of the main, and then this should be broken out, correct? Just at coils.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should do a sub harness for each set of coils, 1 sub harness for the injectors. That way, if we ever want to change what we're running, again, you can just change the sub harness. And life is grand. You don't have to start unwiring a whole harness, disassembling it.
Okay, so the next question is for water temperature sensors.
One must be. I would think 2 water temperature sensors right there.
I think they've treated this like 2 motors.
It does look like maybe they had 2 ECUs in it. I don't really know.
I mean, there's 2 of everything.
There's 2 of everything, which is a thing that some, I know Ferraris run essentially 2 ECUs to run their V8s. They more or less run them independently. Generally, you need 1 cam sensor, 1 crank sensor to get you how fast it's going and where it is in the stroke, in the cycle, and then you need 1 coolant temp, 1 cam. It's just crazy. It seems like there's 2 of everything, which I guess is possible. We could Google it real quick and see how many ECUs this thing comes with. Maybe they run it off 2 Ford V6 ECUs.
Duratec, maybe?
Maybe Duratex. Maybe 3-liter Duratex. I don't know.
I mean, there's 2 of everything.
Yeah.
2 crank sensors, cam sensor on the back of each valve cover.
I see it. I sure see it. All right, so Barb did some Googling, and turns out that this year Aston did have 2 ECUs. Probably run these things as 2 separate inline 6-cylinders. Yeah, that checks out. What that means for us, I don't exactly know, because do we need all those sensors to run it? Probably not.
We'll get Tyson on the phone.
Yeah, we might call the guy. Why don't we call the guy?
All right, we'll check back.
All right. All right, we talked to our guy Tyson at Hang Tight, and he confirmed, yes, there's just too many sensors on this motor. You only need about half of them. We're going to run the most convenient crank sensor and cam sensor. We're going to skip these 2. We'll probably block off one of the coolant temps. We don't need it. We're going to have a full dash that reads the information off of that single coolant sensor. So we're going to be able to simplify this quite a bit. So we're going to start laying this out and get rocking. Also, we need to put 2 O2 sensors in it down in the headers that we made. He said the one thing we are concerned about is that those intake manifolds, if you notice when we pulled them off, they're completely separated. So we're going to run 2 MAP sensors and 2 IATs, 2 intake air temps, just so that there's information from each bank. But besides that, to get it to run, we'll have enough resolution off of just 1 single cam and crank sensor. So
That helps quite a bit.
Yeah, that's going to make our lives a little bit easier. This side, don't worry about it.
Forget about it, huh? So we need 1 for alternator, One for AC, one for knock. Correct? All right, let's do it. Here we go. We'll catch
We're gonna
back.
knock through a bunch of this stuff. I'm looking back. There we go. That's it.
Hey.
All right, rock and
Hit
roll.
it. The wire is either going to go on the back or on the top. AC is here. Crank is down there. This will get tucked up like that, so it's not too close to the belt. And then they run up here. That'll go inside the
Coil cover.
coil cover here.
We've still got to do O2s.
Yep.
Drive-by-wire pedal inside the car and the connector for the T56 to get rid of the weird lockout on the reverse. Beauticious.
I just have to know where to tape them together. Yep. So put the breakout like here. Give us some length. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
And then put this here.
All right, so we have now laid out every component that's going to run this V12 Fox body. It's going to go over to the guys at Hang Tight. They're going to build the ECU Masters harness. We've got the drive-by-wire pedal already laid out. We've got the O2 sensors underneath, dual map sensors, everything. The best part is we don't have to build it. And I've talked before about, people are like, oh, it's just a dumb Ford V6 and another dumb Ford V6 crammed together. I think that's awesome. I think it's really cool that this exotic car V12 is made up of, pretty readily available American parts. Like if I need a new oil cap, I don't like the look of this one, I can walk over to my Lincoln and I can just grab another one, which actually happens to look much nicer. It's also the first exotic car V12 I ever drove was Tavarish's. Oh, this thing pulls great. Oh yeah. He's got a super nasty Aston Martin. I drove that, I had a blast. These things sound good. It's gonna make a bunch of power and I'm super excited to get back on this project. But that's it for tonight. We're gonna do Corvette stuff.